They want to have a satisfying, passionate sexual relationship. And guys, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's talk about sex. How many times have you heard that? I hope many times within the context of your marriage, but maybe not. So I'm going to give you some tips here on how you can start to understand who your spouse is on a sexual level. You ready? Here's a question you can ask yourself. Which book would you rather read? The 7 Keys to a Great Marriage or Red Hot Monogamy? Which one? Which one are you going for? Because how you answer that question is huge. It's enormous because it's going to put you in a sexual category. You're either a deer that pants for water, or you're a teddy bear. You're just a teddy bear looking for a little cuddling, right? So are you a deer or a teddy bear? Let's talk about the qualities of both, okay? Let's talk about the deer first. I want you to complete this sentence for me. The way to a man's heart is through his fill in the blank. How many of you said stomach? Stomach. Really? Seriously, stomach? Which anatomy book are you reading? Because you flunked that whole class. I'm telling you, if you look at the research, it is a different story. The research consistently shows that 80–90% of men view sex as the most important aspect of their marriage. The most important aspect. When asked what one thing they would like to change in their marriage, these men wish their wives would be more, number one, interested in sex, and number two, more willing to initiate physical intimacy. Another study shows that the majority of men indicate mutual pleasure and female initiation of sex were among their primary needs. Like, they want this thing to be a mutual process that everybody enjoys. And the moral of the story is most guys are actually very serious about sex. They actually are. And you look at that research I just described, these guys didn't have responses like, I wish my wife would cuddle with me more, or I wish my wife would whisper sweet nothings in my ear, or I wish my wife would clean the house more, or I wish my wife would do anything. They want to have a satisfying, passionate sexual relationship. And guys, there's nothing wrong with that. We have to make the decision as a people, as couples, that we're not going to judge our spouse for some things that are important to them in the marriage. Now, I want to establish something. Number one, not all guys are like this. I get that. I do marriage counseling all the time. I understand there are many guys, 20% if you look at the research, that aren't totally consumed by sex. And that's cool. That's healthy. The research shows that while that 20% of men have other things that they might prioritize, it doesn't really mean that it's not important, that it's not on the table. And in fact, many men who minimize or avoid the impact of sex in their lives do that because of painful experiences from their past. Things like, sometimes it's, sexual abuse, which is way more typical than you might think. It's amazing. Sometimes it's just the fear of rejection or the feeling of being rejected in the past. And sometimes it's just because of their fear of failure, their fear of whether or not their wife is going to enjoy it or not. So regardless of how your husband thinks about sex or how he feels about sex, make no mistake, it is a vital part of how men in particular are made up. It's part of our wiring. Now, the second thing I wanted to tell you, let's not forget, some women, they are deers that pant for water. I mean, there are some women that have a desire, a very strong libido, a very strong sex drive. That's not unusual. That's not crazy. That's not absolutely impossible in the context of a healthy marriage. And we need to be clear about that. And again, guys, you cannot shame or reject your wife or judge her if that's part of her need and part of her DNA. So we need to normalize this process and recognize some people, they're the deers and they're panting for water. Now, there's a whole nother group of people. And that's all you teddy bears out there, right? You're a teddy bear. If you're just looking for a little connection, you just want a little love. I just want a little affection, a little hug now and then. For these individuals, they see sex and romance in a very similar way. For the teddy bear, sex runs on a continuum. And on one side of the continuum, you have actual sex. But on the other side of the continuum, you have like a wink across the room, holding hands as you walk down the mall, a peck on the cheek, a hug. And sex for them is all of the things that build up across the continuum that end in the actual act of sex. So teddy bears, here's the thing about teddy bears, they don't actually have to have intercourse to feel like they're having a sexual or romantic experience. For them, that wink across the room, that romantic dinner, that touching in a caring way, those things are just as important as sex. They're just as sexual. They're just as exciting, and they actually make the act of sex much more meaningful and much more fun for the teddy bears. So if you want to have a healthy sex life, figure out whether your spouse is a deer or a teddy bear, and don't judge them for it. Just love them in a way that's consistent with how they feel love.